everybody, welcome back to the Jensery YouTube channel with me, Jen. Hope you're all doing okay. Today is a beautifully sunny day here in England, so I'm hoping spring is on its way. But today we have the last instalment in the love and friendship theme that I've had running all the way through February. And as you can see, there's not much in front of me because this activity is as effective as it is simple. So you really don't need much, but it's such a lovely one and I really wanted to share it with you. So let's get started. Now, as you can probably tell, I'm a bit of a mule for ideas, really. I tend to kind of amalgamate lots of different ideas and lots of different inspirations that I've had over my career of teaching and my own approaches, and just sort of fuse them all together to create things that I think are going to be effective for learners, and this is one of them. So it's a little bit sensory story-esque. It's a little bit movement based, it's a little bit kind of morning stretch. So that's essentially what it is. Now, obviously I'm not a physiotherapist, I'm not a conductor. You know, if you're watching as a physiotherapist or a conductor, do get in touch because I'm always really interested to hear about movement based activities. But this one is trialled and tested, and it's certainly something that promotes enjoyment in learners, whilst also giving them a really nice stretch first thing in the morning. Sometimes doing those sort of morning stretches, if you've got learners with cerebral palsy or physical impairments, can be a little bit of a drag sometimes. So I think adding a bit of creativity in it, a bit of a story, can sometimes just make it as good for you as it does for the learner. It just brings in a little bit of excitement, a little bit of enjoyment. So yeah, that's essentially what it is. We're going to do a stretching program of sorts, I guess, based around the story, Guess How Much I Love You. Now, I'm sure a lot of teachers watching will be familiar with this story. You might be as a parent as well. It is a beautiful, simple little book all about two rabbits, two hares, baby rabbit and I think a daddy rabbit, that basically just tell each other how much they love each other. And it's a really great one for movement-based activities, so that's why that one's chosen. Now I'll pop up the front cover on the screen now. It's called Guess How Much I Love You by Sam McBratney, but what I would probably recommend you do for this is find a YouTube reading of it. There's lots of people reading it on YouTube, and have that on in the background, and then you can work in that lovely dedicated one-to-one space with your learner. Now in a minute I'm just going to go through each section of the story and tell you the key action that I would put in for each section, so you can have a lovely little sensory stretch with your learner. But before I do that, I just want to kind of mention how important postural management is for children and learners with physical impairments, actually for all of us. Our mental health is so directly impacted by our posture and our ability to move. Certainly if lockdown has taught us anything, being kind of stuck in and not moving our bodies really affects our mood, and it's really important to get out there and move. We are designed to move. Now I'm a bit of a yoga fan, so all of the activities that I'm going to tell you in this sort of sensory stretch story are sort of based on that idea of moving one way and then retracting back and moving the opposite way. Now certainly in yoga practice that's something that you do quite a lot. You go one way and then you sort of counterbalance it by moving the opposite way, just to kind of reset your body. So it does cater for that as well, but as I say, if there's any physios watching, I'd love to hear from you because I'm really fascinated by movement and stuff. But yeah, from a mental health place, it's really important to move our learners, to stretch our learners. We can't just kind of bring them in the morning. If you're watching as a practitioner or a teacher, we can't just bring them in the morning and get them from wheelchair into supportive seating, or you know, home chair into school chair, and just without that stretch. It's so important, and I certainly start my day with that. So yeah, really make time in your day to start your learner's day like that, because if they're comfortable and you know, they've got that basic level of need met, you know, talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and things, you need that sorted. You need to be ready to learn, not just from a mental capacity, but in a physical capacity, because they are directly interlinked with each other. So make time to do those stretches and give your learner that lovely ability and that lovely freedom that comes with movement. Okay, so Guess How Much I Love You. Now, if you're familiar with this story, you'll know that it's about a little hare just trying to show the sheer magnitude of his love in lots of different ways, and that essentially almost being a little bit surpassed by the adult hare. Now that works really well from a stretching kind of perspective, because we can do it a little bit, then retract back, then do it a little bit more. Now certainly in yoga practice you would do that. You would do it one way, then kind of take a breath and then go a little bit deeper. And that's going to be a really lovely stretch, just to get a little bit of a deeper stretch for your learners first thing in the morning after they've had a night's sleep. Okay, so the first action in the story is that the little bunny rabbit stretches his arms really wide. So if you've got your learner out of their supportive seating, lying on their back, you can give their arms a really nice big sort of stretch, and that's going to be really, really nice on their sort of shoulder joints. Now, you can follow along with the story. As I mentioned, I'd probably put it up on YouTube, and then you've got the narrative going. Now, what the narrative is going to do is build up that level of anticipation. So with anticipation comes an understanding of familiarity, an understanding of what's going to happen, an understanding of time, an understanding of what point of their day they're in, and that's really important for our learners because that gives them a sense of regulation. So automatically, before you've even done the lovely stretching that is obviously going to regulate them, they know what to expect, and that's going to bring them down and just give them a really nice sense of calm. So if you're going to use this story, use it repetitively, because that's just going to give them a really nice sense of regulation before you even start. So yeah, you can stretch our arms wide, and then sort of when it goes on to talk about the adult hair, what I would probably do is bring their arms back, and then when the adult hair does it a little bit wider, you can do that action again, because then you're kind of bringing it nice and wide, then bringing it back, and then bringing it wider. So that's a really nice way to kind of start and wake up those shoulder muscles. After that, little nut brown hair goes really high. So again, you can get your learners' arms really nice and high up, kind of really, really above their head. And again, that's going to wake up all these lovely shoulder muscles. So you can put it sort of right like that above their head, really, really nice and tall, and bring it back, and then go even higher the next time. So that's the second one, to go really high. After that, little nut brown hair does lots of things with his feet, and he starts kind of rolling, going upside down and stuff. And a really nice way of doing this for a sort of sensory stretch first thing in the morning is to bring their sort of ankles right up, so that you've essentially got their knees like on their chest, and you're sort of holding their ankles, because that's going to stretch all of their back, and that's such a lovely stretch. Certainly in yoga, when you bring your knees up to your chest and you have a little bit of a roll, it's a really nice sensation, and that's just going to kind of lengthen their spine and give their spine a really nice stretch. So yeah, sort of bring their ankles and their knees up to their chest, give them a little bit of a swing and a roll, then make it nice and long again, nice and stretched, and then go even deeper the next time. And you can even give them a little bit of a roll. That's a really nice sensation, and certainly gets a lot of smiles out of my learners every time I do that one. After that, little nut brown hair does some hopping, and after we've had that lovely kind of knee rock and rolling kind of activity, we can get their feet on the floor and give it a little bit of a bounce. And sometimes I do these kind of sensory stretches in the morning as a walk, like a sensory walk, because I think sometimes getting their feet down on the floor and just feeling the floor under their feet is a really nice thing for proprioception. So it's a really nice way of understanding where the floor is, because actually if you're not a walker, and again, if you're watching as a parent of a baby and toddler who maybe isn't that good on his feet yet or hasn't even started walking yet, it's a really nice way of them understanding where the floor is and understanding where their feet are. Which sounds bizarre, I know, but actually they don't really get that sensation if they're in supportive seating all the time. So to have their feet just down on the floor and sort of jumping and bouncing is a really nice movement-based activity on its own, but a nice way of them experiencing what it's like to have their feet on the floor, and what it feels like when they move their feet up and down on the floor. So that's a really nice way of doing the hopping part of the story. Then after that, the little nut brown hair says that he loves him all the way to the river, and then the adult hair says he loves him to the river and over the mountains, I think, or the hills or something in the background. So that's where this comes in. Now this is going to engage your fine motor skills of your learner as well. Now this is just a bed sheet. I've just sort of tied some knots in it. You can use a scarf, you can use whatever you want to. But this is a nice way of kind of opening fingers up in the morning, so you can do a little bit of fine motor sort of stretching skills first. Again, physios, if you're watching, some fine motor stuff would be great. But yeah, sometimes I find if you kind of whack that in their hands, and then you can kind of go like across the river, so you can kind of do it from side to side. That's a really nice way of doing it. And over the hill, so you're kind of doing a sort of up and down action again. So across the river and over the hill, and that's just going to be a really nice way of them feeling like they're holding something and like they're being in control of something. Certainly for our conductive education things that we do in my setting, that's a really nice one to do. I know they do a lot of stuff with kind of up and down, sort of holding onto scarves and things, so that's what that's there for. And you can use anything, pillowcase, any bit of material that you've got, but I say the chunkier the better sometimes. And again, you can change the weight of these, so if you want to improve strength, and again get that proprioceptive awareness up, you can add bits into pillowcases when you're doing it, so you can add weight to it, so they get a different sensation of weight through it, which is one of the sensory modalities. So that's a really nice way of exploring weight and exploring proprioception. And then, as we come to the end of the story, little nut brown hare gets regrettably more tired, and he says that he loves him to the moon. And then the adult nut brown hare says, "I love you to the moon and back." So it's a really nice way of finishing the story, and actually that's a really nice way of finishing the sensory stretch. So you can lie down next to your learner, you know, literally right next to them, side to side, or, you know, if they're lying on their side by that point, you can kind of look at them and have that really close, almost intensive interaction time. Now, obviously, if you're watching as a parent, you would probably be doing this anyway, but if you're watching as a practitioner, I can't tell you the kind of benefit from a mental health closeness and kind of intimacy and getting that relationship with your learner. I can't tell you how lovely it is sometimes to just lie down next to them and mimic their facial expressions and really kind of be that close to them, and they love it as well because they're feeling free, they're out of their supportive seating, their body's in a nice space, and it's just that light, really lovely kind of nice comforting touch, and that really nice comforting proximity. So you can even just rest your hand on their shoulder and just sort of talk to them just for the last little bit of the story before you finish off. And actually then you've done a whole lovely little sensory stretch. Didn't take too long at all. You can repeat it if you want to, if you think actually they could probably cope with that again. You can go right back to the beginning, but it's a really nice way to start your day. That's my offering for today. As you can see, not much needed at all. Really super simple one, yet so important and so effective. So if you liked the video today, please do give it a thumbs up down below. Subscribe to the channel, share it around, spread the love. That's what we love on Gensery. So I'll see you next time for a brand new theme. So until then, everybody, take care. Bye.